Thanks everyone for joining us on a Friday afternoon at 5:30, and at least for me, down south in Virginia, it's raining, so just one of those days. But Nate and I are really excited to talk about some work we've done on the structured data side and the SEO side of Drupal, in both strategy and adding to a metadata module that Nate will speak to. So hopefully you'll get some good value out of this. My name is RyanMcBurney. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing Interactive Strategies, which I'll kind of introduce ourselves a little bit more on the next slide. But Nate, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, natemow, open source developer here at Interactive Strategies.
Yeah, so who is Interactive Strategies? That's a great question. Maybe some of you know us, maybe not. We're a fun group. We're a good group. We're located just south of DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. Although we certainly have many different, employees now across the country and in different areas. And we are a full-service web agency. We offer full-scale web development support as well as content marketing and design. And a lot of times we bring all of that together into one integrated strategic effort. And a lot of that work is really focused on Drupal. We've had, a really good fortune of working with some great clients on some great projects to elevate our offerings, our strategic work, and in this case, even, offer something to the Drupal community as well. So what we're going to talk about today on a Friday afternoon at the very end of a conference is structured data. So exciting. Very, very cool word, at least, and I'm sure we can all agree on that. So why structured data is really important to SEO these days, especially now and moving into the future. Kind of the key concepts and tactics that we see as important for any type of structured data strategy. We do have more and more clients, coming to us and interested in this type of work. It's definitely future forward for the SEO world, and of which many websites are not necessarily built for and optimized for. So I'm guessing this will be more of a common conversation with your teams, with your clients, with your developers. So hopefully, again, you can get something out of this conversation today. Nate will speak to our work with the Schema metatag module in Drupal 8. Which we submitted a patch that had to do with medical entity work, which we'll speak to. And we do have a client example here that kind of helps weave through the story and our work. The client is in the healthcare space, specifically lupus, and we've already seen some great results from the work that we're talking about today, which we'll speak to at the very end. So what is structured data? Good question. Structured data it's a form of microdata. It's code in a specific format. In this case, schema. Schema is just one way to provide structured data to search engines, but it's just in long story short, it's a way for websites to better speak to search engines and have search engines better understand the content on a web page. So that it can share rich snippet results and dynamic results in search engine result pages. So we've all seen it, whether you search for a recipe, whether you type in a question, a lot of the times you get the answer now within Google without even going to a website, which is certainly Google's intent. They want to provide the best information as fast as possible. And while in some cases that does take away from traffic and SEO results, for many clients, it's an important focus because, at least for our clients, we work with a lot of associations and nonprofits, sometimes in the government side of the world. It's important to be a thought leader, and part of really being that authority, being that thought leader is, of course, Google visibility. And with rich snippet results, it's a way to, reach the top and get your information in front of as many people as possible. So in the health and medical world, for example, which is our example today, our goal for them is we wanted them to own the space. This client has this amazing resource library of information from doctors and experts on symptoms and lifestyle tips and, this and that can help a patient navigate some complex situations, and we want to get the best information to the people who need it, and structured data is certainly a way to do that. So you've heard it all in terms of SEO, and from people you've engaged with. You've heard everyone say, you have to write content for humans, and that's certainly true. But in this case, we also want to make sure we're writing for robots, aka search engines, and making sure that the signals that search engines are receiving are clear and are aligned to the page and the content that you want to elevate more. So why is structured data important? We're always, all these, in the SEO world, we're constantly fighting for that #1 ranking. And now the #1 ranking doesn't matter that as much as it did. So here's an example of typing in a search term. I think, what is lupus? And before you even get to the #1 search listing, you're going through 18 different pieces of featured snippets. Whether it's a full like rich snippet listing, whether it's questions people ask, whether it's a carousel of different types of lupus, it's almost endless just in the Google search result page. So if you can find, for your clients or your website, if you can bring this content into this space, that definitely will pay dividends for your SEO strategy and for your results. And where snippets come from, they usually come from web pages that are already in the top 5. So if you're looking to optimize your web page, if you have a similar resource library, if you have really awesome documentation, you have to first focus on getting that page into the top 5 of a search term ranking, because that's what Google is pulling from. Outside the top 5, you have a much lower chance. We're talking pretty small decimal points. So first priority is get your pages into a better ranked position, and then from there you can really start tracking the featured snippets and making the updates on the back end. A lot of competitors for the client that we have in the lupus space, a lot of their competitors were already using structured data. For example, Mayo Clinic, they're a giant in the space. They're a giant in the SEO space. They own tons of #1 spots for health related searches, and they are very active in structured data. They were very smart to move ahead pretty quickly on getting structured data in place. So if anyone's on the call from Mayo Clinic, good job. You definitely inspired us. And also, if there's anyone from Google here, please don't sunset the structured data testing tool, which is what we're looking at. Putting that into the universe, because it's been a huge help for us. But you might be in a space where your competitors are already using structured data and using to their advantage. So it's something that you want to make sure that you're aware of and you try to compete against. So how we see the tactics, so structured data is great. Of course, we want more visibility in search engines, but how do we do it? First thing is adding schema to top opportunity pages, and Nate will actually walk you all through that process from the Drupal side of what we did for our client. And so when I say top opportunity pages, I mean, again, the pages that already rank in the top 5. So pages that rank in the top 5 and bring in a good amount of search traffic and impressions, and the keyword is pretty regularly used. Those are your best pages to really focus on first. With anything related to website updates and SEO, you really have to think about phasing out your work. You can't do everything at once. So it's always good to prioritize the pages that give you the most bang for your buck. Then it's helpful to also identify, this is more of a manual process, but it's helpful to identify opportunities from the people also ask section. So that's when you're in the search result page and there's the people also ask section with 4 or 5 questions. That's an accordion, and you click on a question and answer pops down below it. That's a great way to get a sense of the different pieces of information that people are looking for. And once you identify those opportunities, then you can create snippet bait, which I'll talk to in a second. So snippet bait is essentially just understanding what those opportunities are, and it doesn't take too much content. Just 40 to 60 words on an important page can do this, can accomplish the goal a lot of the time. And it's it's getting right to that question and answering that question as quickly, succinctly, as most valuable way possible. And once you put your website, your web page in a position where you have more of the snippet bait, where you're really where you understand the opportunities and then the content that tackles the opportunities, then that's when you can really see some magic happening. So here's what the people also ask section looks like, in case you aren't totally aware. But it's more real estate on a Google search result page, which is a huge deal more and more these days. Another trick you can think about too is, while paragraphs are mostly what's being pulled in from websites to these rich snippets, lists are also an opportunity where Google can identify lists if they're in H2 or H3 subheader tags. That's a people consume lists. It's a much more digestible way to consume information, so that could be a good option for what you're looking to do as well. In terms of the more specific on how we identified snippet bait opportunities for our client was through keyword research. It was a very manual process of going through hundreds of searches, categorizing all the questions that we saw, and then doing some keyword research. We use a program called SEMrush to really understand what are those top volume questions and answers that we can tackle with new website content that can not only bring more traffic to the site, because that's the ultimate goal, but just increase overall visibility for the and increasing impressions just across all relevant searches relevant to Lupus and relevant to our client. So to implement the structured data, not all structured data is, this is schema. So not all schema is needed. And for, our client, they were in the healthcare space. So the goal is to always be as specific as you possibly can with schema and with structured data in general. So we understood that we need to really focus in on what was most important for them, which were things like conditions, signs and symptoms, causes, and kind of the rest here that are called out. So we got to work, and I'll pass it off to Nate. But we realized that work needed to be done to the schema metatag module. It didn't have the medical entity schema and the medical schema that we needed. So it's an opportunity for us to kind of focus on that and apply our work to the metadata module. So Nate, are you able to share your screen? And
yeah, let me see. If you can just to Ryan, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Thanks. All right. Okay, so yeah, as Ryan said, we did need to extend. First of all, if you're not familiar with the schema metatag module, it extends the baseline metatag module, which we're probably all familiar with. Just about every site runs it. This builds on the framework that the metatag module extends to create these structured data snippets that we've been talking about. So when we say structured data, the format is JSON LD, which extends the RDF spec. If you're familiar with that, you'll see a module that ships with core RDF that you can still enable to enhance your results as well. So looking through the schema metatag baseline stuff, it's got pretty generic stuff in it. You'll see article, person, event, just a handful of kind of top level things, and then some supporting objects as well. So there's roughly 24 what are known as things in the schema.org community that the module provides out of the box. The full list, which we can swap over to schema.org and look at, is huge and growing every week, it seems like. There's roughly 1,200 objects in here. So while the schema metatag module is a great start, there's a lot of room for people to contribute here. So as Ryan mentioned, our client, lupus.org, they needed some support for medical entities. So at the time, these were the top level medical entity items. So the patch that we submitted is basically a submodule with a whole bunch of submodules. So this is a pretty dense code base to work with. I had to spend quite a bit of time just basically looking at the baseline submodules and figuring out how the plugin system worked here. So it is very verbose to code against this model. So what I wound up doing actually is creating a generator. And I don't think this link made it into our presentation format, but I'm just going to paste this so everybody has it. What I'm about to show you is I just put it up on GitHub yesterday so you guys can have it. Let's see how I get to the change here. There we go. So just paste that there so everybody can take a look at it. This is really pretty basic shell scripting that I did here to generate a lot of these modules. So once I had the kind of baseline wrapper, my medical entity object established, we needed all of these sub objects. Specifically, Ryan wanted me to focus on medical condition, and I think cause was another one. But once I had the generator, I thought, well, I might as well just generate as much as I could. So this was an exhaustive list at the time that I submitted the patch, which is February, but there's since been 6 or 7 new secondary things added to the medical entity schema. So if we go to the full list here, so you can kind of see this is everything related to medical entities according to schema.org today. So there's a lot of stuff here, as you can see. So each of these objects has properties. So you can see for anatomical structure, for instance, there's all these top level properties. This extends the medical entity, which in turn extends thing. So it's this huge tree of descriptive data, basically. So in order to help add support to Drupal, we basically started creating modules. So again, this is what I'm showing you here is just a demo, basically how I created these modules. So I'm going to create a new module just so you can see how this works. So we'll call it the Splash Mountain module. Splash Mountain identifier, and then a case. So what that did is generated my module here. So I've got all the config I need to support the Splash Mountain top level object. If I go over here to the modules list, I'll now see that. All right, so you see we've got Splash Mountain there. So there's my top level wrapper. And then I need to add properties to my new module. So this script also makes that pretty easy. So there's a lot of, I think you need to add configuration, you need to add tag classes, and that's a metatag term. So basically this is just doing all that for you. So I'm going to select the module that I want to add a new property to. My property I'm going to call the slide count. How many slides are there at Splash Mountain? And then generate the tag class to support that. So that's pretty much it. So if I go back to my module here, you'll see that it added my slide count property. Now type is a baseline for anything in the schema meta tag hierarchy. So type always has to be there. And then you just add properties as needed. So again, if we look at the anatomical structure configuration, I added all these properties in that case, which also each one of these needs a corresponding class. So as you can see, this is a lot of basically empty placeholder code to add support for these properties. And a lot of what this does, it reads in the doctrine block at the top of these. So this is really the important part that this little script is generating. But this is basically what's required to work with schema, which is kind of a pain, honestly. But that's what we had to figure out. So at the end of the day, we can add support to our baseline entities. So I'm just going to go ahead and enable my Splash Mountain module now. Okay, sorry about that.
I should have come prepared with a good schema joke while we waited for this.
Waka waka. Who's a new dad? All right, so our Splash Mountain module has been enabled. Now we need to add support to one of our content types. So this is baseline schema meta tag configuration. So you just go to settings. You see all the possible entity types that you can attach to. So in our case, lupus.org resource, as Ryan mentioned, this is our big one. So you can see for resource, I've enabled all of these. So we can, okay, so Splash Mountain is already enabled. That's good. Let's save that. So if we look at our very important what is lupus page over here. So I've got the basic tags, the meta tag is already added, same with Open Graph. And then we get down here to our custom schema.org stuff. So here's Splash Mountain, which I just added. And here's the property that I added, slide count. So that's good. That's pretty much a new custom module. And we don't have to go through all the rest of the stuff that's in this medical patch, but you can see for the top level medical entity, there's a lot of stuff that is required. Some of this is baseline thing properties. So identifier, name, description, these are all kind of root properties for thing, which also extend to all sub objects. So you'll see we're using tokens for a lot of this. Some of it, we've got custom content that we're pulling in. You can fill out as much or as little of this as you want. This is conceptually interesting if you think about kind of the Internet of Things and you're creating this giant pivot of data, basically, which is kind of why this is neat and exciting and why Google cares so much about it, because it creates a much richer data environment than the traditional meta keywords, meta description, even semantic HTML and basic RDFA tags just don't really create this kind of three-dimensional cloud of data that the schema.org stuff does. So that's why this is cool. So if I just save my entity here, we can take a look at the blob of JSON LD that this spits out. So just go here. Okay, let's do source. And here we've got all the JSON LD that has been added to our page. So you see we've got our medical condition data, our medical entity data, and let's see, we should have Splash Mountain in here somewhere now too. Yep. So here in the middle, you see our Splash Mountain type. And by the way, these blobs of data, they don't have to be presented hierarchically. I got hung up on that for a while. I wanted, condition to be inside of entity and just kind of nest it all the way down. Google doesn't care. It's looking for a blob that says medical condition. It's looking for a blob that says medical entity. It does not matter that it's not nested. So don't get hung up on that as I did. But we can take this blob of data and go over to the testing tool, which Ryan mentioned. So this is actually, you'll see it'll give me a warning here. There is a new preferred tool, but this one's still available. So if I just run the test, this will give me warnings, if I've got any malformed property names or, the JSON's broken at all, it'll tell me that immediately. But this is everything that Google can now see about our web page, right? So this is a lot of stuff that can be inferred from, the indexing process. This is not, and this is something I expect to change eventually, but there is not strong typing associated to these properties. So I guess if I look at medical condition, for instance, let's see here. Trying to think of a good, yeah. So if you look at any of the schema.org objects, each of these properties, you'll see has oftentimes sub objects or related objects. So in this case, sign or symptom is of type medical sign or symptom. That's a completely separate object. This could easily be represented as just a plain old text field too. Currently, Google isn't checking types too deeply. I expect that will change. So I think it is good practice wherever you can, wherever the support is available to use strong typing. But if you just had, a bunch of properties that you generated and all they had was text fields, that's okay as of right now. So something to be aware of as the spec grows and changes. But when I say subtype, you can kind of see what a rich subtype would look like over here. Yeah, so image would be an example of a rich subtype. So this could just be, a URL to an image, or it could be an image object. So this would be a subtype. So there's that. Let's see what else. A couple of things as far as next steps in the schema metatag module evolution. This actually went through a complete re-architecting not too long ago. So the 2x version apparently has the ability to read structured data directly from schema.org. So I'm really hoping that, in order to continue adding support for new objects, we don't need to, write jobs of submodules to support each object, and we can we can introspect metadata directly from schema.org. I haven't checked out the 2x version yet, but I'm really crossing my fingers that that is the case. If not, we can all look forward to hundreds and hundreds of submodules in here to support all the things and objects that are in the spec, which, you know, hopefully that list stops growing at some point, but I don't think it will. So it's just, like I said, there's a lot of room for contributing to this module and also kind of guiding how it's implemented in the schema metatag module. So even Karen Stevenson here, you know, she had kind of a eureka moment, I think, with this last release. It's a total re-architecture apparently, so we'll see where it goes. But I think that's about all I have for technical kind of overview. I guess we could open it up to questions if we want to.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, over for Allison as the room monitor. We don't really have any questions in the chat right now, and I'm not tracking anything on Slack, but if there's some folks in the room who want to unmute and ask the questions, this is a good time to do that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, if not, no biggie. I know this is Friday at 5:30. Everybody's probably itching to get to happy hour or something.
Okay, there's one that actually did just come in. It says, curious if you are seeing performance issues due to all the submodules.
Not really. It is a lot of code that's running, but it's really kind of being, I guess, filtered through the context of the metatag module itself. So the fact that there is a lot of code it's more a function of just kind of being able to play nice with metatag than it is requirements for actually implementing the schema.org spec. But, you know, at the end of the day, when these blobs of JSON LD are dumped onto the page, it's going through a single hook. I think it's like hook page attachments alter or something, whatever the hook is, where you just alter the head directly. So it's really not like a ton of processing, to be honest. So, and it's just reading in, you know, serialized config, you know, same as the rest of Drupal. So all that's obviously cached and stuff like that. So good question though. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there are no other questions. You know, thanks so much for. Oh, there's one more, Wayne.
There we go. Yeah, it says, can the implementation of schema.org in the content type force default values if it's not complete?
Implementation. Yeah. Just as with the rest of metatag, you can tokenize, and that's generally what you want to do when you set up, when you attach, you know, a particular schema implementation to your content type. You're going to want to use Drupal's built-in token system for most of the fields. So that's going to be title, summary. You know, you probably got, you know, an image field. Yeah, you can default all that. You can also hard code it if you don't want to use tokens. You can hard code it at the global level, or you can hard code it on a per node level if you wanted to. But yeah, tokens are definitely supported in all this, which is great.
Okay, I've got another question that came in. Have you used alternatives to SEMrush that might be good? SEMrush is pretty pricey.
Yeah, it is pretty pricey. Actually, we have my colleague Chelsea Lemostre on this call too. We've been using SEMrush for so long, and it's, you know, I've been at IS for 7 years. For the first couple of years, we used Moz, and then probably for the last four years, we've used SEMrush, and it just has everything we need. So in terms of alternatives, there's not one I'd recommend at the moment because I actually just don't know because I've just been so in SEMrush world. So I don't know, Chelsea, if you can unmute and have any thoughts there as a special guest appearance.
I don't think that, I think what we've found is there really is no like free alternative that does anywhere near the same job as SEMrush. I mean, Google Keyword Planner is free, but you certainly do not get the degree of data or like level of precision in terms of the keyword research. So I would definitely recommend investing in a tool like SEMrush.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Last call for questions. Anybody else, either unmute or if you want to throw something into chat. If not, then I just want to thank our speakers today. Thank you guys for sticking around and even with a late day session, it was really informative. So thank you very much.
All right.
Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of the
everybody.
day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
All right.